Welcome to this episode of the podcast where we are delving into the series of how I built my business. This time around, we've got a special guest, Mr. Jason Munro of Munro Nutrition. Hello, Jason.
Hello, thank you for having me. With the rest of your guests not special? Am I the
Well,
special one?
there's, I think every guest is special. It's the solo
In their own
podcast that
way.
I do on my own. They're the not special ones because they're just with me.
Yeah.
Um, So you are a special guest. And obviously you're a little extra special because you're a client of mine. And therefore, all clients are a little bit more special than the average person, right? Let's be honest. So we're going to be talking to you about your journey of entrepreneurship and the ups and downs, the trials, the tribulations, what's gone well, what's not gone so well, anything you still struggle with. And we'll cover all of that sort of stuff. But first, for anybody who hasn't heard of you, hasn't kind of found you on Instagram, doesn't know quite what you do, give us the 30-second lowdown on what Jason does in the business world.
So I am an online nutritionist. I run a membership group working predominantly with weight loss clients, mostly women, and the vast majority of them being long-term yo-yo dieters, bouncing from Slimming World to Weight Watchers, etc. And it's my job to try and guide them out of that and towards a diet-free life. There you go.
Perfect.
Was that 30 seconds?
It was roughly. I wasn't timing you. Okay, so you mentioned it's a membership site, and therefore we're talking more sort of lower cost and aiming more for sort of like high volumes, kind of in that like membership subscription style thing rather than a ultra high ticket one-to-one coaching sort of thing. So most people probably listening to this, I guess the vast majority of people will be fitness coaches or nutritionists of some description. Most people will either have had the thought process or the advice to go into one-to-one as their start point. So curious on everybody's behalf, because I probably know the answer, but curious on everybody's behalf, like what kind of pushed you down that route of going through like a membership site as your main product?
So, it all kind of happened accidentally. I joined some other group and saw how group things were being run, but it was run by a PT who was getting involved in diet stuff, and it was all very disordered and terrible. And I realized, I could probably do this a bit better, but that was way back when I was still employed in a full-time job. I do not have a background in nutrition for anyone listening. I worked in a factory staring at concrete products all day. And it's part of the reason I was around 14 stone back then. And this all kind of started off with me on my own weight loss journey. Joined this group, saw how things worked, like realized that things like this existed, decided I could do a much better job. And then I started putting together my own thing back in 2017 and launched it in 2018. So I came at it from a different angle that most do. Most people start off like as PTs on the gym floor or nutritionists working one-to-one with people. I came in from the other side of things. But I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that I'd built up a social media presence at the time. So I had started putting out my own content. I'd originally started documenting my own journey. The Instagram account I have just now was my personal account from way, way back when. And it transitioned to like a personal fitness weight diary. Then it went to me putting out content. And the followers, back when it was very easy to build a following, and got to 10K followers pretty quickly. And I had this large audience looking for more. I had given them all this stuff, and then there was people like lots of DMs. I spent, God, how many hours did I spend in my last job privately coaching people through DMs just because I could do back then. Do this and these endless conversations, and then that realization that I could do my own thing here and bring these people in, and this could be a new potential career.
Yeah, it's curious then, like again, a lot of people, including me, I made a transition from a corporate job into nutrition coaching, very, very similar fashion to you, I guess. And there will be a lot of people who are considering jumping into a different career, maybe they're doing something, either PT or maybe copywriting or anything on the side, like what was your kind of like process from ditching the full-time job and taking the leap into doing what you do now full time? Did you just kind of pull the ripcord and take a big risk, or did you wait for the revenue to reach a certain point and then transition? Because you're a guy who's got a wife and a young family. I guess you know there's lots of considerations. So kind of what was the thought process, and how did you make that jump?
So 2017, the last kind of 6 months of it, like looking, I didn't know what I was doing at the time. So I was just winging it. Looking back now, I can see that I went through a launch process where the last half of 2017, I was building this thing. I was sharing it on my stories. I was getting people involved. I was gathering email addresses. I was building a waiting list. And I was also charging very little. So I was charging, this is the big thing at the beginning. I was charging people £10 a month. And they had to pay 3 months in advance. So it was these £30 payments. And it got to December when I was launching it. So people were signing up in advance to start in January. And 100 people signed up pretty much right away. And at the time, I'm like, fucking hell, $3,000. Look at that. I've just made $3,000 just from this thing. And it's not even launched yet. But I was still working full time in my job. And then I launched it in January. And I was doing both. So the job that I worked in, I was taking my laptop to my work, and anytime I had a break, I was going into the canteen and I was sitting working, like doing check-ins, talking to people, doing stuff. Fortunately, like in the job that I did, you could get away with sneaking around with your phone and replying to things on your phone as well. By the time I left that job, I was on a final written warning for phone use. But in January, it just exploded. I think by the end of February, I had 500 members.
Nice.
And then I think it was somewhere around the 27th, 28th of March. I think I handed my notice in like the first couple of weeks of March, and then I left a few weeks later. And by that point, it was just getting ridiculous. And yeah, you're right. I had a mortgage. I had a 3-year-old and another one on the way at the time. So there was lots of big conversations in the Munro household before I made the decision to hand my notice in. So it was a big risk to take at the time. And the funny thing is, like, probably for at least a year and a half, I remember asking the group a question, saying, at which point do you decide that you're a success in something? Because for those first probably the first year to 2 years, you're constantly waiting on it all to come crumbling down around you. You're just waiting for everyone to cancel and leave one day. It was a very strange thing. It took me quite a long time to accept that this is what I'm doing now. This is a business. So yeah, it was a big. It wasn't an immediate transition. It was a few months, but it was probably a very quick transition. I mean, when you watch things like Dragon's Den and you see entrepreneurs that they've been at this product for years and putting tons of their own money into it, and I guess a quick 3-month turnaround is a pretty quick way of doing it.
For sure. And it sounds like we almost like made that decision. Obviously, we didn't know each other back then, but it was literally February 26th. I think I handed my notice in 2018. So you're kind of like a month later, you kind of did the same. It's quite cool. Now I've interviewed a few people for the podcast over the last couple of weeks, and I actually wrote are they still called tweets? Are they X's? I don't know. Whatever you do on that platform. I wrote about 3 of the common topics or the themes that kept coming up with these interviews. And one of them was risk. And it's come up again in this one. And it's very interesting to me that people who have achieved success at various different levels with entrepreneurship have had to take a risk at some point. To ask some slightly different questions than I have in the previous episodes. So your natural character, are you risk averse, and that was a like a big kind of like scary decision, or are you someone who naturally is just like, yeah, let's go do this thing. Yeah, it's a risk, but I back myself to do it. Like, which kind of like headspace are you naturally kind of falling into?
I'm probably in both, but if it's just me that will suffer the consequences, then I would take risks, no problem. But when you bring a family into the equation, that's when it's very different. So I would say that I'm not really, not now anyway, a natural risk taker when your family finances, your mortgage, your kids, etc. are involved. But yeah, I would say like prior to that, I was a pretty big risk taker. But
Yeah.
I don't think you can get far without taking risks. One of the reasons people stay stuck in jobs they hate for so long is because they're stuck in their comfort zone. Like nothing cool happens there.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I had the same thought process. For me, it was kind of like, if I mess it up, it's only my life that's going to get messed up. So why not? And then it all kind of like worked out, nicely, shall we say. So then you've made that leap, 2018, you're all in on your nutrition business. What are those first like 6 months like for you? Was it like an exciting time? Was it like difficult? Were you tearing your hair out? What was kind of like that first few months of being on your own like?
So there was a lot of anxiety and worry initially, purely from like, is this going to work? Are people going to get results? Is it, I've spent all this time banging on about Slimming World and Weight Watchers, and spoke very heavily about them way back then. Am I going to have something that's successful? And then once the results started rolling in, and this was back when like people actually cared about Facebook and spoke in Facebook groups instead of just being like lurkers. And we had this really amazing, thriving community to the point where I couldn't keep up with it. I had to put like things in place to like slow things down so that I could keep up. So yeah, once I started getting like proof of concept, I think we call it. It was very exciting, but then it started getting out of hand. We reached the point where we had 2,000 members. That was at the kind of peak, and I was working 7 days a week. I worked 7 days a week for the first 2 years, I think, or the first 18 months, something like that. Between that point, every single day, getting up, doing endless check-ins nonstop. But yeah, that was the kind of first phase of it, and then I moved on to the next phase, which was like, how do I start? I've got the business now, I've got the foundation, it's ticking over. Like, how do I start claiming some life back?
Sure. This? And then, like before we get into that, say claiming your life back, like, obviously lurking around the corner after 2018 is good old fashioned lockdown. So what did that do for your business? Because obviously, you're in a group thing. I know several people who, from a group perspective, things started to thrive for them. Some people had like major difficulties. What was it like for you in that lockdown period?
Horrendous. So what happened to me in lockdown was I bought a house, the one that I'm in now, a new build, moving out of our old flat. So we moved out of that. I can't remember the exact dates, but whatever the Thursday was before lockdown, we moved out of our flat. And the plan was we would move into my in-law's house, which is just not far from me now. We would move in there for a week because they were still finishing this off. It was a little bit behind. And my in-laws were going to stay at their caravan for the week. It was all sorted. Stuff went into storage. We went to the house, fine. And then Friday, Saturday, Sunday passed. And I think it was like on the Saturday or Sunday, lockdown got announced from the Monday.
Oh, wow.
So there was a big mad panic then. My in-laws were like, it's fine, we'll just stay at the caravan. Everybody thought it was going to
be a week,
breeze over and it'd be all okay. And that turned into 5 months at my in-laws because the construction, it was all stopped. They couldn't come in here and finish the house off. It was just a driveway. All it needed was a driveway and we could have been in it. But for 5 months, I had to live at my in-laws in their bungalow, a spacious bungalow, but 4 adults, 3 dogs, 2 kids, one very young, and I'm trying to run a business from home at the same time. So it was horrendous from that perspective. From a business perspective, it wasn't great initially. People just panic cancelled, across the board, went into the banks and just, what can I cancel? Direct debit after direct debit. And I probably lost 200 or 300 members in a week, which was a bit of a panic, but like it bounced back again. Like once people got over that initial panic and that initial fear, came to accept that this is how it's going to be, realized that for some people, the finances weren't going to be affected too much. I think I started getting like a different type of client. It was like a client transition type thing, where all those people left, but then a lot of them came back, and then a lot of very different people signed up. So yeah, that was my initial COVID experience.
Gotcha. Cool. So then we'll come back to kind of like the timeline of your journey in a second, but I want to switch now to social media, because if we'll put a link to your socials in the show notes, but if people go and navigate towards your social media profile, you're not short of a few followers, right? You got like what, 40 something thousand, something like that. So larger than the average person's account. So was that a process of like, was that a quick process to get all of those followers? Has that been a steady thing? Like what's been the growth process of that sizable following?
So back in 2017, it was so easy to build a following. Like all you had to do was put out infographics, and like nobody was doing videos then. Reels didn't exist. It was just infographics and stories. But I was very heavy on Instagram. I used to spend ages drawing stories. I've got folders on my computer that I was looking through the other day, and it's me like using the draw feature to draw functions and explain like this is how your diet was. And I did a lot of stuff like that back then. And all you had to do as well was like reshare stuff. You could reshare. I used to share like SciAt fitness stuff, and what's the guy's name? The one you worked with? Always forget.
Carter Good.
I would reshare their stuff. That would get loads of followers. And I built up to 10K very quickly. Got this swipe up function once I hit 10K. And I would say for the first couple of years it was very easy, but then social media went through this big thing where it just became harder and harder to grow following. Like people kind of stopped caring about information, and it became more about entertainment. So yeah, 44,000 followers. Like I probably made the bulk of those in the first couple of years, and then it's been very slow. In fact, this time last year, I did it popped up somewhere. I did a 40,000 follower giveaway. So I've gained 4,500 followers in the last 12 months.
Okay.
Whereas previous to that, it was
tens of thousands. Yeah. So you mentioned like video didn't exist, reels didn't exist. I think I remember I made my first reels in lockdown. That's kind of say they were probably hanging around before then, but I just resisted. But so like 2020 maybe is when reels started to pick up, and
IGTV was the thing before that, wasn't it?
Yeah. And a lot of people started to pick up big followings in lockdown because of reels. Like I remember there's like, because random fitness stuff began to be very popular, and I remember this one woman, she started skipping rope in lockdown. Now she's got like a couple of million followers, and she's got like I think she's sponsored by some sort of crazy company, and she got like she started skipping in lockdown. So crazy.
Is that the girl that dances to music quite a lot?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
So how did you go about like creating a shift in your content? Like, so obviously videos didn't exist. Like, how did you start approaching doing video? Was that something that came naturally to you? Did you go through a learning curve of figuring like how to talk on camera, or like what was that process like for you?
Yeah, that's a pretty good topic to cover for people, because there's probably lots of people who are scared of doing stuff like that. So when I when I first, coming back to this for a second, like when I first started creating videos, I didn't do any talking on Instagram, didn't do any talking on stories, didn't do any videos, nothing like that. When I was building the program, the group program through 2017, I had a few videos that I needed to record, right? One was a welcome video. I waited until it was like the 30th of December, the very last jab, left it until then. And I was in the living room in my flat. I had a whiteboard balancing on my radiator. I had bedside lamps from the bedrooms from all over the place, and I had them all pointed at me in different directions, trying to get decent lighting. And I spent an entire day in the house by myself trying to record this welcome video. And I was getting stressed out. I was sweating buckets. My face was going beetroot trying to do this thing. And that was like my first kind of stepping stone into video. And then from there, I started going, I would go live with our members and then build up from there. But then also at the same time, I remember being in the forklift at the old job and, testing the water with followers, first of all, because I was so shy to go on camera saying, would you guys be interested in seeing me doing talking stories? Like everybody's like, yeah, what about talking stories? And then I started doing more of those. So I'm quite a shy guy. I'm an introvert. I don't, like yourself, I don't, it's not that I don't have friends and things, but I don't go out as much as some people might. I prefer my own company. I prefer doing things by myself. So it was a big deal for me to get into the video stuff. And when I tell people that about me, they don't believe it because you wouldn't think it. My wife says that to me as well. She's like, how is it you never want to go anywhere with friends and stuff, or you don't talk to people when we're out and about, but you'll go and record fucking videos for Instagram, no problem. Yeah. So yeah, that was something that came in time, not something that came naturally to me. It was something that took time to get into.
It's the same for like I remember I was in a coffee shop once, and people who know me, say for example, like day to day, I meet them in town or whatever. There was a group of people who go to the same coffee shop as we do on a regular basis, and it was the first couple of times we'd met them, and they'd gone and had a look at my social media, and after speaking with me in person, they said like, who the hell is this guy on social media doing all of the sort of more extrovert-y style things, like this is not the same person. And like a little bit like you is that you kind of like, I guess there's somewhere deep inside there is a little bit of an extrovert personality. And I find
behind closed doors extrovert.
Exactly. I find like as long as there's no one else in the room, I can let that part of me, come out a little bit. Whereas if I'm in a room with a bunch of people or a dinner party or whatever it is, or then I'm like shelling up and going back inside myself. So I
need no one to be in the house. Like I can't record. I can do client feedback and record videos and stuff while people are in the house. But if I need to record a podcast episode or a reel or anything at all, can't do it with anyone in the house. Kids, wife, no one. It all has to be done while the house is empty. I'll quite happily make an arse of myself in the kitchen doing something stupid for a reel. There just has to not be anyone there.
I know that feeling. So in terms of then like the business and using social media, so what's that process been like for using social media to grow your business? Has that been what have you had to kind of skill wise, what have you had to learn? Because I know like
everything.
Because we were talking before we came on, we were talking about email automation, and I know from the work that we've done over the last several months that you've put a lot of work into how you manage clients and how you make the processes more slick and seamless for them and also more efficient for you. So I maybe kind of just allude to for the listeners, like what sort of a learning curve have you gone on in terms of trying to get your head around all these various different sort of things to make your business work, basically?
Yeah, it's what you don't think about when you start running a business. Like I didn't have a lot of the stuff that I have now. I had a thing called, I didn't use Canva back then. It was something called Designer with a Y, I think was one back then. which was very clunky. Once I switched to Canva, the difference was unreal. But that was, I had to start learning how to create infographics, which you basically learn from seeing other people doing it on Instagram, and then you start making ones about the stuff you want to talk about. Before that, I did a lot of drawing, like I said, on my stories. And then I didn't even have like an email list. In fact, I'm pretty sure that when I was gathering people's email addresses, they were just going into an Excel sheet. Like when I did that launch in 2017, it was like people were just sending me email addresses on Instagram, and I was copying and pasting them into an Excel sheet somewhere until I eventually got into email marketing and moved into that. So yeah, I've always been tech minded. So I've kind of got that going for me. I pick up tech stuff pretty quick. So like diving into, this stuff I'm doing today is light years ahead of what I was doing back in 2017. It's like a transition thing. I think when I first launched, I feel now, looking back, I feel like I did very little. I had this super warm, organic audience that it was completely untapped. I was going to be tapping into it for the first time. And I kind of rode that wave for at least 18 months, a couple of years. And then once that starts to run out, it's like, right, now I need to start working harder to get clients. Now I need to start working harder to get in front of people, to let them know that I exist. And again, not knowing this at the time, it's only now, especially after working with you, looking back, you can say, well, the reason that I then had to start email marketing and doing these different things is that, I had ran out of the warm people. Now I'm getting in front of new people, and these new people don't know me. So now I need to let them know who I am, what I know, show them the results that I can get. So it was almost like a transition from, having that kind of untapped source, that kind of untapped well that just kept coming and paying money. And now it's like, right, now you need new people, and you need to have a process to introduce yourself to them and keep up with them, contact them, etc. And then it just kind of gets more and more complex from there, because that's more work that you weren't doing before. That takes up some of your time. And then similar to, we didn't get into it, but like when I, working every day for nearly 2 years and then trying to get some time back again, you almost go through phases where it's like you add something in, you realize that you're at max capacity, and you're like, right, how can I start being more efficient with this? What do I need to introduce here to start giving me some time back? Very similar to like last year when we were working together in the summer, when I first started using ManyChat, and I didn't yet have the thing in place to automatically gather email addresses. It was very much, I can't remember exactly what I was doing, but there was some kind of manual job involved. And then ManyChat just kind of exploded things. It's like, right, I need to now learn how to use Zapier to connect this in, to gather that email address. Then I need to build this stuff to trigger all these automations. So yeah, I think in the beginning, if you have that kind of warm audience, it's easy. But then once you start running out of the organic stuff, then you need to start working harder. You need to start working smarter, basically.
For sure. So over the course of let's say like 2017, 2018, when things were starting to kick off for you, up until now, you've had to learn a bunch of different skills, be it email marketing, automation, social media graphics, website copy, website design, all these sorts of things. Of all the skills that you've had to acquire, and you might not consider yourself to have mastered them all quite yet, but you're certainly on the way there with many of them, which has been the most important for, the success of your business? What kind of like core skill do you think that if I'd have focused on that sooner, maybe it'd have been a little bit easier? Still would have been hard probably, but a little bit easier.
It's a very good question. I'm going to say copywriting, because again, like I didn't know, it's only now looking back, you don't realize that it was copywriting. But feedback that I get from clients is that I'm good at taking complex topics and converting them into like easier to understand. But what they don't know is it's because I don't understand them much myself. I'm just I'm not dumbing it down. I'm just dumb. But yeah, I think that's helped a lot, because I think the ability to make things relatable and easy to understand and digest has probably played a large part in what I do, because of the type of people that I work with. I don't work with people who care about research and data and science, and they like the idea that the stuff you're talking to them about is based in science. Like, they like knowing that, but they don't care. They don't need long words and fancy concepts. So yeah, I would say that was a really good question I had to think about then. But I think that's probably been, I think, getting better at writing captions and telling stories and stuff. Although I do feel now that the world is at a point that my skills aren't at yet. I feel like, I was doing good for a while, and then the way that things are now online, I've got some catching up to do again.
Sure. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? You think how are
So
things shifted? That means you.
yeah, I'm just going to put it down to COVID. Like, post COVID, the online world's exploded. People always talk about saturated markets and stuff. I'm not a big believer in the whole saturated market thing. I just think there are people who are better at doing the online stuff than others, and the people that are best at marketing, at writing copy, at running ads, whatever, those are the ones who tend to win the most, right? There's only so many clients in the world, and the more people there are to get a share of them, the more difficult it is. You just need to be the one that tries to stand out a bit more. Sure. So yeah, I think COVID lockdown, the online world taking off, PTs having to pivot to the online world, and nutritionists as well, not just PTs, but at the same time, that created a lot of shit coaches as well. So
able to stand out with that, even
it's not the case that, because all these people are online, it's super difficult. There's just as many bad coaches out there as good ones.
Probably many more.
More, yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, I fully agree with the copywriting thing as well, because I think, like, if you can write good copy, you can write a good email, you can write a good sales page, you can write a good caption, you can write a good reel script, you can write a good carousel, and basically everything kind of hinges off of that, because copywriting is about really communication. Can you communicate a thought? Can you communicate an offer clearly to someone, so in a copywriting sense, so they buy it, is essentially what you're trying to do. You just take those same principles and say, can I create a video script so someone listens to what I've got to say? Can I create a carousel so someone swipes through it to the end and responds to the call to action? And I think the same for me. Like, I started really not even being half good at it until my first kind of like toe in the water was in 2018, really. And that was just me just writing stuff and figuring it out. None of it was any good. But I would only say, like, it took probably two and a bit years to would be somewhere where actually, okay, right, this is actually kind of like now doing something for me. I'm actually feel like I'm actually reasonably good at this. So if I'd have started that skill way earlier, then, not to say things would have been super easy, but certainly would have been a little bit easier, for sure. So moving on to content, then, one of the questions that people have all the time is, how do you come up with ideas? How do you turn an idea into a post of some description? What's your approach to content creation, coming up with an idea and turning that idea into something on social media?
So I think, when we started working together, almost this time last year, my content was kind of hit and miss. But it was one of those things where, like, before I'd built the business, content was easy because that was all I had to do. And then you start doing the business stuff, and then you get the clients, and then you get all the shit that goes with it. It's very easy for that to kind of fall away from time to time. So when we first started working together, it was very much on and off. It's much better now. And I think a lot of that for me has been taking inspiration from the way that you do things. So, I work with hundreds of people every week, and I wasn't taking as much inspiration from them as I should be. So like if I'm doing a client check-in, so I do check-ins different to what most people think a check-in is. My clients fill in templates, they show me some screenshots that I need to see, and then I record screen on screen over the top of it. And record their feedback. But as I'm going through that, and especially now that I'm using Loom to do that and getting transcripts and stuff, I'm highlighting all the kind of key problems, and then that generates lots of ideas. Like Chat GPT is making it ridiculously easy now, because you can just paste in a transcript and say, right, highlight some key problems in this, and give me 10 problems that I've dealt with in this, and I go, right, here's what you dealt with, this and this. And you can go, cool, that could be a podcast episode. That could be a daily post from a community. That could be a marketing email. So yeah, something I'm doing a lot just now is kind of tripling up on things. So like I'll write a daily post from my community. I'll then convert it into a marketing email, and then I'll maybe look at it and say, right, how can I turn this into an Instagram post? Could this be a reel, a very easy reel? Could it be a bit more in depth? Could it be a carousel, etc.? So you're multi-purposing. Again, it's just all about efficiency, isn't it?
Sure. And I think the point that you made there about is kind of getting more mileage out of each idea. Like it's not like here's one idea and then bang, that's the Instagram post, and then okay, right, now I've got to think of an email. It's like you don't have to replicate and copy paste everything across every single platform, but you can kind of take the kernel of the idea and kind of extrapolate or take it down a different path or come at it from a different angle or whatever it is. Is that one idea can often spawn several pieces of content. And so I think being smart, especially when you're talking to your ideal clients every single week, then the questions that they're asking are logically the questions that the ideal clients that you've yet to sell anything to, they're probably struggling with the same things. So talking about that stuff on social media makes absolute perfect sense. And you don't necessarily have to think of ideas every single time. Like this morning, I was posting some content. I'm trialing a new little bit of software called Hype Fury. Don't everybody go sign up to it on my recommendation, because I've literally used it for a day. So go make your own mind up. It might be great, it might not, but I'm going to figure that out. But basically, it's kind of like for Twitter and Instagram and kind of like things like that. And so it's kind of there just like bashing in a few ideas and stuff like that. And literally, I was just thinking about, I recorded 2 podcast interviews yesterday, and I was just kind of going through, okay, what topics did we discuss? Okay, yeah, they said that about that. Okay, cool. I'll put that, a condensed 2-sentence version of that out as a tweet, and I'll expand on this, and I'll make it into a little Instagram tweet style carousel, and let's kind of like see how that does. So a lot of the conversations that you have spawn all of the ideas. And I think that a lot of people who struggle with coming up with ideas are those people that think that they have to sit in front of a computer and say, right, now think of something. And that's just like putting yourself on the spot, and it kind of never really works.
It's a constant thing. You need to be thinking about it all the time. My best thoughts come when I'm walking the dog in the morning and when I'm in the shower, and typing into my phone, onto my notes, like the most fucking random of sentences that I never know what I'm talking about by the time I go back and read it. So yeah, I've got this endless list on my phone as well if I ever do really run out of ideas. But yeah, you're spot on. Like people sit down and they'll do, they're like, right, I'm going to create 5 posts for this week. What are they going to be about? And that you should have done that a week before while you were dealing with clients.
It's like one of the downsides of the whole like time blocking and things like that is that sometimes that time blocking thing works because you say, okay, I'm going to set some time aside to do X, Y, Z, like build an automation or do that. Sometimes I think like creative stuff, yes, you probably have to have the discipline to sit down and create and do all those sorts of things. But like inspiration doesn't come in a specified slot on your calendar. It just like pops into your head. And I was listening to an interview with an author the other day, and a little bit like you, he finds that he gets through a lot of writer's block by the ideas that he has in the shower. And he actually has, I've never even knew this was a thing, but he has a waterproof pad or like some sort of board or whatever it is in the shower. And then he literally is, as he's showering, writing the idea on this board, takes a picture of it, and then,
Mhm.
goes and, translates that into whatever it is he's writing. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to go on Amazon and find one of these
Mhm.
shower boards or whatever they're freaking called. And I'm going to go and use that. So yeah, I think I fully agree. It's like inspiration, like comes when it comes. You just got to be ready to kind of like adapt
Mhm.
and, go from there.
Mhm.
So we've gone through loads of different stuff about your social media and your business, and probably like the last question I want to finish up on, because a lot of this series about how I built my business is trying to give people an understanding that I haven't yet interviewed someone where it was all plain sailing, that it was kind of like easy, or even however successful they are now, that it's easy for them right now. It's always been a little bit of a struggle. So I guess my question is, what things do you struggle with still, or kind of a try to get your head around, or things that don't come as easy as you hope they will in the future? What are some of those things that you kind of think, well, I haven't mastered that yet? Like that's still a little bit of a hill I've got to climb.
The biggest struggle for me is like acquiring new clients. I think that's the problem. When you run a membership site, you're dependent on getting more people in. Like it was easy in the early days because I had that organic audience that were already warm to me, but it was also £10 a month. Like who's not going to take a punt on something that's only £10 a month?
Mm-hmm.
It's now we're now at £48 a month. So that, that didn't just happen overnight. That was a transition. £10 a month for the first, I don't know, couple of years. Then it went to £20 a month. Then it went to 40. Then last year I moved over to the new platform from the free Facebook group, so I increased it slightly again. And it becomes more challenging to get people to part with more money. So that's why I think that's part of the reason why you have to get better with all these skills as well, because the more money you want to charge, the better your marketing's going to have to be. So yeah, I think my biggest challenge is getting in front of not in fact probably not getting in front of new people, but converting those people, getting people to part with their money and take a gamble on something.
Mm-hmm.
um the environment, the economy has probably played a part in that over the last couple of years. The war in Russia hasn't helped. The cost of living hasn't helped. Ridiculous energy prices and fuel prices over the last couple of years, that's made things challenging. Something I forget a lot of the time as well. But yeah, that's my ongoing ball ache. Just
Way to put
getting
it.
clients to come in. It's just getting in front of people and just showing them, like, look, here's a problem that you have. I can solve this problem for you. Stop going with me. It's like, stop going back to all the shit that doesn't
Mm-hmm.
work. Slimming World, Weight Watchers. Somebody messaged me not long ago and they were like, I was going to sign up with you, but it was too expensive. And then I was sat on whatever website about to order a bunch of these shakes, and our bill was at like 138 quid or something for this however many months supply of this something shake. And she was like, I realized once I seen that total, like how ridiculous that was, that I thought working with you was expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's my biggest challenge.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges for everybody, because I think wherever you're at with your business is if the goal is to increase revenue, then the challenge is to get the lead flow in the first place and then convert it on the back end. So, one of those challenges is always going to be around, and overcoming that is one of business's greatest challenges, I suppose. But having said that, there are lots of external factors which always play a part.
Yeah.
Whether it is economic climate, whether it is like political things going on, it's really difficult to know how all these things specifically affect your business and how you can kind of adjust to those. But I guess you just have to know that it's a bit of an up and down ride, right? Being doing your own thing. And it's just part and parcel of it. You're going to get some really, really great months. You're going to get some good months. You get the odd shitty month, and you just hope the odd shitty month isn't too shitty and
Yeah.
doesn't hang around for very long.
Mhm. And when you're in this industry, you know when it's coming and when it's,
For sure.
you know, when it, like just now, it's almost Easter time. People are not going to be giving a shit about themselves for the next couple of weeks, so things are probably going to go quiet. And then once
Yeah.
you get beyond that kind of half term Easter, then you get that kind of window between now and summer where things start to pick up again.
Yeah, and like obviously we're in different industries and stuff like that, and or niches, shall I say? And it there is a little bit of the similar thing that goes on. So around like Easter time, again, my the revenue in my business will take a slight dip, nothing drastic, but take a slight dip over that like Easter period. And sometimes I put that down to people are, the kids are off school. So parents are now, okay, let's just keep the parents who are also entrepreneurs and business owners say, right, okay, whilst the kids are running around at home and I'm having to take them to this thing, that thing, keep them entertained, I'm not going to sit down and watch one of Simon's courses. I'll do that
Yeah.
after. So
Yeah.
like I still experience that. And I put it down to those sorts of things. So there always is that ebb and flow. And you can, if you know that they're coming, you can kind of like plan for that and try and, work around that and things,
Yeah.
make things still stay afloat, as it were.
Mhm.
Awesome. Cool. So thanks very much for giving us the lowdown on your business, Mr. Munro. And obviously, where would people have to go to connect with you, find out more about what you do, follow you on social media? Where do you most hang out? Where can we send people?
Instagram is where you will find me most of the time. Munro Nutrition, not underscore anymore because Simon got me to change it. It's just Munro Nutrition.
Okay. And it's much easier to say on a podcast,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah. Imagine the time I'd spend having to say underscore every time I said my Instagram username.
There you go. Simple tip to end on as well.
There you go.
So perfect. Thank you very much, my friend. And I will see you soon. And people will hopefully hear from you soon too.
Cool. Thank you.